is universally regarded to be the greatest game ever made, and famously started the Pepsi-like genre. That's why my first and only idea for the Robot Party Game Jam this year was to shamelessly rip it off. If you're one of the 3 people who watch this channel, you may remember that last year I ended this game jam late and missed the first half of it. This year I wanted to make sure I didn't repeat the same mistake. So I missed 3/5 of the game jam instead, and so I had just 2 weeks to create the game. So with no time to waste, I got to work making a basic version of Pepsi Man. But then I realised it's stupid and unrealistic to have someone run through all these obstacles. So instead I decided to switch up the art for something a bit more grounded in realism. And that's why you play as a giant sentient potato with sunglasses and a quiff, driving around in a tiny car. This improved the way things feel so much. But of course, I didn't want to just shamelessly rip off someone else's game, so I decided to add my own twist. And that twist came in the form of ripping off Katamari Damacy. Because the game seemed way more fun when you were smashing through objects instead of trying to avoid them like the coward you are. This was now the core mechanic that the whole game was based around. So now that I had a solid plan to make Katamari Damacy, it was time to do some actual game design. Since the core mechanic of this game was extremely simple, I really had to nail the 3 C's on this one. The first of these C's is character, which I kinda already covered. But seriously, having switched out a person running for a car driving makes a huge difference. Now the rails felt more natural and less like a gamey restriction, and smashing through objects now felt sensible instead of something that should hurt the player. It seems like a purely cosmetic change, but has a huge impact on how the game feels and how players naturally interact with it. The second C is camera. For this I did the usual boring game dev stuff. Pulled it out enough to get a good view of the whole playable area. Made sure that the angle was just right so you could see how close you were to objects without hiding the ones coming up. And add enough camera shake on each impact to really hurt those with motion sickness as a punishment for being so weak. The final C was control, and this required a much smarter solution. The first issue was with how fast the player would be driving. The player needed to feel like they were right on the edge of losing control as they zoomed down the street. But that specific speed is different for each player, based on things like their reaction times, their ability to plan ahead, how well they can control the character, and how dumb they are. The second issue was that with just left and right inputs, I needed to make sure the player still felt like they had enough control to actually find the game engaging. Both of these were solved by tying the player's speed and control sensitivity to the objects that they pass. For every object that the player hits, their speed increases and the controls become more sensitive by a value of 2. For every object they miss, these attributes drop by a value of 1. This means that the player's speed and the sensitivity of their controls are always slightly changing to keep them in a spot where they will hit around 1 in 3 obstacles, regardless of what speed is comfortable for them. If they are going slower than their individual perfect speed, they will hit obstacles more easily and rapidly speed up. And if they're going faster than their perfect speed, they'll have less time to react and their controls will be too sensitive, and they'll miss more than a third of the object and slow back down again. And that concludes the boring game design section. The next thing I needed was a storyline. So I wrote out a classic hero's journey style script and reached out to the finest actors in the Game Jam's Discord, only to find it was way too late to start looking for team members. So instead I called my buddy Lex and we ad-libbed for 2 hours worth of complete nonsense. And that then got cut down to about 4 minutes of usable dialogue, which just about makes sense if you squint your ears hard enough. A Discord member by the name of Jojo did reach out offering voices at the last second, but I already had everything recorded at that point. So instead I sent them a perfectly normal request asking them to scream down the microphone as if they're being repeatedly hit by cars, and I have to say they did an amazing job of this. Thanks Jojo for what I can only assume is a method actor's performance, and for all of the cars you got hit by preparing for this role.
Not again!
The last thing the game needed was music, but since I'm incapable of creating anything musical, and it was way too late to ask anyone else to help me make some original music, I instead had a look at some royalty-free music and found a band called Untimely Dosage, which has some absolute bangers. Seriously, listen to this stuff. And just like that, it was a finished game. So to check if there was any bugs that I missed, I asked my girlfriend to test the game for me. And she completely missed the point of the opening twist. This is why testing is extremely important for game developers, as it lets you see things that you can easily miss. Like in this case, I didn't realise that my girlfriend is so stupid and can't understand basic game mechanics. So I sent it to some friends instead to test, but of course they let me down as always. It's like tradition or something at this point, I don't know what's going on. Luckily, one of the organisers of the game jam happened to be streaming the game, so like a creep in the bushes I could spy on them and use it as a more accurate playtest. And they missed the point too. and that's when I realised I did a terrible job of teaching the player how to actually play. But it's fine, I still had 2 hours left before the deadline, which was just enough time to patch in a solution and beg my girlfriend to move back in with me. The solution was simply to change the hearts in the corner of the screen that did nothing for a cash value that goes up when you smash things. That's legitimately it. Suddenly everybody understood. Money going up is good, say no more. So the deadline came and the game jam ended. Kyle Bossman played the game and had an uncontrollable smile on his face the whole time as he was driving through crowds, confirming that he is in fact a psychopath. And even normal people seemed to really like it, as it was rated second for most fun in the whole game jam. All in all, a pretty successful project, and it's given me ideas for a full release sometime in the future. Check it out on itch if you want to play it for yourself.
You know what I'm thinking of? Pepsi Man.